Forrest Knipe.
Oh, now you scared me. All right, commence.
When did you first come to Oklahoma City?
I came here in February the 14th in 1914.
Valentine's Day.
Not the 14th, the 18th. I'm sorry. Let's start over. The 14th is Jane's birthday, and she was born many years later.
Okay.
I came here. What? Go on.
When did you first come to Oklahoma City?
I came here in February the 18th in 1914.
As a bride.
As a bride, as a bride. And I've lived here all my married life.
Where from?
From Quincy, Illinois, where I was reared since I was 2 years old.
And you were born?
In Kansas City.
When?
I don't tell that. A woman that'll tell her age will tell anything. Keeps no secrets.
Mm-hmm. What was your first impression of Oklahoma City?
Wind. I had a fur coat and the wind went right through it. My first impression was wind.
Mm-hmm.
I spent my honeymoon, you wanted to hear this?
Yes, ma'am.
I spent my honeymoon at the Huckins Hotel. And that was when all the social events of the city were held there. Also, the legislators and their wives congregated at the Huckins Hotel, and that's why I felt so badly when they tore it down. And it was really the meeting place, and many nice parties given there.
How do you like downtown Oklahoma City now?
I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible.
How did it look in 1914?
Well, I just can't remember. I guess it was just a little town, a small town. And I knew lots of people. Now when I go out to eat or go someplace, well, I don't see anybody I know, and it's kind of disappointing.
Mm-hmm. What was your husband's occupation?
He was a cotton man. He knew cotton. He was with the Southwestern Cotton Oil Company. He managed their gins, and he was here. And I knew no one when I came here except him, and he knew Mr. Vose. He was connected with Mr. Vose, and he just knew them. That's all. We knew nobody when we came here, and we rented this little house on 18th Street, right off of Chartel, and we paid. You want to know what we paid for it?
Yes, ma'am.
We paid $18.25 a month rent. It was a little farmhouse. We were the smallest house on the block, and it was a nice little place. And sometimes the gas would get so low, and we'd get real cold. Not just that house, but everybody's. The gas there wasn't sufficient gas. We'd have to put our feet in the oven to get warm. And I made a lot of friends there. That was before Nichols Hills, way before Nichols Hills, or Heritage, or any of those. All these prominent people lived right there on 18th off of Chartel, and around that curve of Chartel and 18th. And the Deans, the jeweler, and she was, their daughter was Isabel Dean, and she married Short. That was the one that was crucified. What president was it?
What, Roosevelt?
Isn't that too early for Roosevelt?
Oh, no. President after Theodore Roosevelt. Is this 1914 still?
Well, about 1940. No, it was later than that.
Was this the one with Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
That was Roosevelt.
Roosevelt?
Franklin Roosevelt, not Theodore.
Oh, I know, not Theodore. Theodore wouldn't do that. But she was married to him, and we were all invited to the wedding, and the streetcar went right down Chartel, and we all got. She was married at St. Paul's, and he was then Colonel Short, And we all went down, got on the streetcar and went down to St. Paul's in our evening clothes. I don't know why we didn't take a cab. I can't remember seeing a cab, but there wasn't such a thing as taxis then. And we went down to St. Paul's, and she was married there. And then later on, of course, the disgrace that he was put through almost killed Mr. Dean, and they've been gone a long time. Then besides the Deans, there were so many prominent people on that street, and one of my best friends that took me under her wing was Mrs. Charles Gunter, and at that time he was on the, I believe president, I'm not sure, but he's on the board of directors of the Liberty Bank. Oh, the Liberty Bank was opened Liberty Bank. Well, anyway, I was out at the opening of the Liberty Bank, and Mr. Gunter was on the board then, and 2 years later he was president, and he was president for 2 years of the bank.
This is Gunter's of the...
Gunter, Charles Gunter. And finally something happened. I don't know what happened, but anyway, they went to California, and she is still living. He is gone, but she's still living.
What's her name?
Her name is, we called her L.J., and I was associated with her. And then they also built that beautiful house that they call the Eddy House. And that was the Gunter house out there in Nichols Hills. And she was an elegant lady. And not long ago, her grandson, wait a minute. Hefner, Robert Hefner II, gave a big party for her, and I went to it and met her. She was on her 93rd birthday, and she was very frail. I don't believe I'll ever see her again, but she's been my friend ever since then. She kind of took me under her wing and introduced me to all those people. And then the Kerrs lived down the street from me, the Kerr Dry Goods Company, and the Schaefer's, the oil man, and J.B. Barnes, he was in the bank too, and he was an oil man. And Cruz, the governor's brother, they lived up the street there on Chartel. Everybody was there, really. The people of the town were there then. There was none of these other districts, open then. And it was a delightful place.
To regress, how did you come to Oklahoma?
I came on the train.
On the train.
I was married in the evening, and then we came on the train, and we went right to the Huckins, and we stayed there until we found a house, and we found that little house. And I loved the little place.
How long did you live in that house?
Oh, I guess about 5 years. I don't remember really.
Is that where your daughter was born?
Oh, no, she was born. We'd bought a house then, and Jane was born. She was born in the hospital, of course, but she was born later in a home we owned. And those were the days. Those were the days of fun, and those were the days of doing a lot of things, and getting acquainted. And I have loved Oklahoma ever since. I'm in a position now that I could live any place, but I prefer to live here.
World War I.
Well, I was pretty busy.
Doing what?
Well, I was a hostess at the USO, and I was served sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly. I never could see how the soldiers could eat all those, but anyway, and then Mrs. Harrison, Walter M. Harrison, he was editor of the evening paper, and she and I put on some moving pictures on floats that went in a parade, and we worked together. I worked
Moving
with
pictures?
No, they were statues. People posed for them.
Living pictures.
Living, is that what I want to say? Living pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what a time we had getting them to do it, but we did. And then...
and of course you were raising your daughter too at this time.
Absolutely. Of course, I don't see how I got the time really, but I did. I guess she was in school then. I guess she must have been in school because I can't remember babysitters. And Oh, that neighborhood, I go by it, everyone's, the little house is still there that we lived in and were so happy, and I think now they made it into a duplex, but it was just our first furniture. I'll never forget that. It was a time of fumed oak, and Mr. Harbor, we bought all of it at Harbor Longmire's, and Mr. Harbor told me that this, do you know what fumed oak is?
Yes, ma'am.
Horrible, horrible. He said it would last me a lifetime, and many a time I wished it wouldn't. It was so terrible. So then when we finally went to the Aberdeen to live later on, a good many years later, I sold everything except my antiques. Got rid of that horrible furniture.
From the little house, where did you move?
We bought a house when Jane was coming
Where?
on 21st Street. And we were there sometime and worked and did it over, and it was really fun, and had Jane. And then she had the colic. And the doctor, she'd get the colic just as her father came home, and the doctor, we had old Dr. Cunningham. Oh, he was a dear to me. And we asked him what was the matter, could he cure? And he said, well, if he knew how to cure colic, he'd make $1 million. So that's not the real early day, though. The early day was when I lived in that little place.
What church did you go to?
Oh, I forgot to tell you that. As soon as we came here, neither Forrest or I had belonged to a church. I'd, of course, been baptized. I'd been baptized in the Catholic Church, but I never was Catholic. But I went to a convent, and I went to two schools, private schools in Quincy, and public schools, and then I went to a convent late when I was when I was a young lady.
What convent?
St. Mary's, Notre Dame, Indiana. And we went down to St. Paul's, and I've been there ever since. And Father Bishop Brooke, he was a missionary bishop here. He confirmed my Forrest and me, and we've gone there, and I've held every office nearly now and then, sometime in the church. And it's nobody could ever get me away from that church. It's the most beautiful church in town. Mm-hmm. The inside, not the outside, the inside.
1920s. What were you doing?
You know, I can't.
The Roaring '20s.
I suppose 14. Oh, in the meantime, he took a trip out to California, and Jane could just lay on the back of the seat of the car. She was 6 years old, about 6 years old. And the speed, the fast speed of the car was 35 miles an hour. Past that was you were speeding. We drove 10,000 miles. Came back. And
Forrest was in Cotton.
Always in Cotton. And he was when he passed away. He ran these gins. He was manager of gins, and was very successful with them. And then he went in business for himself, and he was the cotton broker. And then Roosevelt plowed under the cotton and pulled the rug under our feet. So you know how we feel about Roosevelt.
Franklin.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sure, Franklin, nobody else.
Where was your husband from?
He was from Perkins, Oklahoma. He wasn't born there, but he made the run. And his father made the run. And he was the oldest son of a pioneer family.
Did he come in with the run?
I don't think Forrest did, but the father did, and father got the place at Perkins.
What was his name?
He was Will Knipe, and he was in the first legislature at Guthrie, and that's when all the social, that was before I even knew him, and all the social and everything was at Guthrie. And I also have the first gavel that was used in that, but that Forrest, his father, gave him. And Forrest's father was always also right-of-way man for the Santa Fe, so he named a lot of the little towns around, and for years afterwards they would write him about things. His father was a very strong man, and he was always, from the time Forrest was a little boy, he was on a cotton, looking at cotton. If he ever got near a cotton, a piece of cotton, a bowl, why he'd pull it to see the length of it. It was just part of his life.
How old was Forrest when they made the run?
I don't really know, but he was, when he'd go out with his father to herd cattle, if he got off the horse, he was too little, he couldn't get back on by himself. Mm-hmm. I've heard him tell that. And I've heard him tell about riding in on the into the cave on a milk wagon, on a milk can, mm-hmm. Just as you start for the cave. And they had the first indoor bathroom and a tin tub in Perkins, and then the natives thought that it was unsanitary because they had because of that, for having it inside. Mm-hmm. And
you mentioned the cave.
Well, they had a cave that you go in for the cyclones,
Oh, okay.
That was the kind of cave they had. I suppose they used it for refrigeration, too. I don't know. Of course, when I got in the family, all that was different because that was a long time. Forrest had gone to Kansas to school and college, and his father had a great deal to do with the school of Stillwater. He was in the early day, and his sister was one of the first graduates from there.
What was her name?
Her name was Bess Knipe Thomas.
World War II. Oh, I'm sorry, the Depression, 1929.
Oh, no, let's not talk about the Depression. It's. I think anybody went through the Depression, it takes its mark away from it. You never get away from it. I'm just now getting away from the Depression. And then this inflation comes. Oh, shoot.
What did you all do on Black Friday?
I don't know.
When the stock market crashed?
I can't remember. I don't think we were too bad to hit. I think we were, of course, there never was a day in Forrest's life after he was grown that he wasn't at the market. Because the cotton changed, the price changed every minute. And he actually, as a broker, he actually sold the cotton by sample. He had a sample room in the cotton exchange, which later they put all the cotton men out of, down there on, what street is that? Well, anyway, they put the cotton, but he was at the market always. And we had a good deal of building and loan stock, and that held us over. We really weren't, well, we were hit too. And during the war, of course, Forrest had plenty of gasoline because of his business. He was in an essential business. And we were not too badly hurt then that way.
Where was the stock exchange? Where was it located?
Well, I was trying to think what street that is. It's, I just can't call the street. It's right downtown it's a Lenahart building now. It's a Lenahart building. And they bought it, and they put all the cotton men out. And he was in the brokerage business there, had his office there a long time.
Is the building still there?
Pardon?
Is the building still there?
Oh, yes. But it's a Lenahart building. It was the cotton exchange. It was all cotton men. And this was a great cotton place, and I'd never seen cotton till I was on the Mississippi River going down to St. Louis on the boat one time. I'd never seen a bale of cotton till I came here, and then it was really exciting.
What'd you do during World War II?
Me?
Yes.
I told you what I did.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do that in the World War I. I did that in World War II.
Oh.
At the USO and the sandwiches and all that. I'd go down to the station, the railroad station that was down on Reno, was it? Where the Santa Fe used to be, and go there, and we had a house there that let me see. The Ambroses, I think, gave us the house for the soldiers, and they'd come and fix the sandwiches, and we
Peanut
were.
butter and jelly?
Yes, and jelly.
So you weren't active in World War One?
I don't think I can't remember that. No, I think that you see, Jane was no. Just came here a bride then.
Well, that was 1914, and then we got in the war in 1917.
Yeah. Well, you see, I was married in 1918. No, I was married. No, I was married. But 1914. Well, I can't remember anything about that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. You made sandwiches during World War II.
And worked at the USO. And Evelyn Seagraves, she worked with me there, and I remember they had to look her up because she'd been in Germany or someplace, and she had to show that she was, we had to be all right because.
What was the first car you had?
A Ford. What do you think? What, did anybody have anything but a Ford the first time?
When did you buy it? What year?
Well, I'm not sure, but I remember Forrest nearly ran into a tree because we had a little one-seater, what would you call that? Just one. And he looked so busy looking at the baby. Oh, she was a beautiful baby. And he was so busy looking at the baby, he almost ran into a tree. And I had a friend that had one, and you had to crank them at the front, then. And we used to tease her about standing there and cranking that car.
You ever crank the car?
What? No, I never cranked the car. I didn't know how to drive then. I really didn't. Yeah, we had that Ford. I think we paid $300 and some odd for it. Just think. And just think, our rent in that first little place was 25, I think, $1925. That's all we paid rent, and it was really 20, but the water was the 75 cents that they paid the water. And the bathroom is at the off of the kitchen. It was a farmhouse. It had been a farmhouse there. Oh yes, and I forgot to say, while I lived there that first year as a bride, the Hesses, who also went to St. Paul's, and they still had a horse and a buggy, and they had a fire over there. The barn caught on fire, their barn back on. Now that was on 18th, right off of Chartel. And the barn caught fire, and they blamed the young boy, of course. And I remember he came over and sat on the porch with me to get out of the way of the people that were harassing about the fire, because he started it, and I don't think he really did. But anyway, because he was young. And But I knew the Hesses for years, then later in the church down at St. Paul's. I think
You say the wind was your first impression of Oklahoma City?
I guess so. I know that I had this imported pony coat, fur coat, a long fur coat, and I'd worn it in Quincy where it gets very cold. And but when I got here and wore it, the wind just went right through it. But I have never. I think what would we do without the wind?
Were the streets paved?
I don't remember. But I know there were no stop signs. Can you imagine a house without any stop signs? You just drove, and I don't think we had driver's license at first either. Well, I didn't drive then, anyway. I didn't drive till many years later, till we got better cars. I never would crank one of those cars. I wouldn't get down and I'm not going to say what.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Did you go to Belle Isle?
Yes. And over here on 18th was on 18th and Classen, there was a station where you caught the streetcars there. Oh yes, we used to get on the streetcar and go out to Belle Isle lots of times. And at that time, you see, what's the Shepherd Mall now was a lake, Shepherd Lake. And of course, we'd never let our daughters swim in a thing like that. We went over to Sulphur and rented a house, and she learned to swim over there. Oh, well, that's long after the first impressions, but that's part of Oklahoma. And
What was Belle Isle like back then?
Well, I know we had something, some sort of something that went around that you rode around.
Like a carousel?
It kind of like it. And my husband never could go around on anything that upset his stomach, and I had to always take Jane. And I know I was taking Jane. I was on that and taking Jane, and we were going around and around and around, and he was standing watching us, and he told me to put my dress down, and I was so put out because I couldn't let loose of her long enough to put the dress down. Oh, shoot, there was lots of fun, Joe.
Is that what they call the interurban, the streetcar?
Yes. No, there was an interurban too, and I still have some tickets. There was an interurban that went to Norman, you know, and we used to go down there. I remember in the early day, well, this was later though, but I remember going down there to an art exhibit, and I remember some of the people I saw on it that have been friends of mine since. I didn't meet them then, but I did later. But it was there was an interurban.
How far north did it go?
The what? The interurban?
The interurban.
I guess the one went to Norman, and then I guess that one just went out to Belle Isle. I can't remember anything else at Belle Isle. There must have been, though.
What about Delmar Gardens?
I never was there. That was before I came here. I never was at Delmar. There was let's see, what was the name of it? There was a little park down in the south side that we used to take Jane, and I have some pictures of her when she got to be about 4 or 5, and we'd take her down there and swing. The park isn't there anymore, though.
What about the dust storms and the Dust Bowl?
Oh, I don't know anything about them, really. I've always lived in the city. Forrest always wanted a country place, and it would have been all right, but not when he retired. But I was a city girl. I've always been. Of course, I was raised in a small town. 35,000. But I never was.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of souvenirs of the St. Louis World's Fair of 1903.
I do? No.
The postcards you have?
Well, what about it?
Were you at the World's Fair?
I don't remember. I don't think so. Of course, postcards. Everybody sent you postcards. I've got all sorts of postcards that, all kinds of, that was the thing then. Nobody ever went any place they didn't send you postcards.
You went to the convent in 1908.
Yeah. What does that establish?
You went to the convent in 1908.
That was a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How are you going to end it?
Are you ready to end it?
Well, I don't know what else you want to know.
About everything about Oklahoma City. The china you have, where'd you buy it?
Oh, all the good china was at Petty's Hardware, And my father-in-law came down here after, sometime after we were married and settled here. And we settled here, I mean. And he took me to Petty's and let me take anything I wanted. So I took that Haviland. And, of course, pink is my favorite color. And I think one was a little rosebud in it, and I've always just loved it. Well, Petty's, all the china and everything. Oh, and the VZ store downtown, those stores on the... I remember a friend of mine got a new car, and we went downtown. She went downtown, and she wanted to park, and we almost went through a plate glass window, and I said, step on the brake, step on the brake. And finally, we didn't. But all those stores along Main Street, and when I wanted to buy anything, really buy something, I always went downtown. I used to think I'd like to live downtown. The Skirvin used to have some apartments across the street from the Skirvin now. And I was sick. I was so sorry when I saw the Huckins. It was really a landmark of the things that are in the early days, the legislature and all that. It was a landmark of it. I'm afraid we've rambled too much.
Oh, I don't think so.
Does it give all these pauses? Can you, every time you pause, does it register on the tape?
No, the pauses don't.
Oh, well then you can pause and think.
Yeah, just when you talk.
Oh. I took a trip with my granddaughter, a couple of years ago, and we were in the car, and I didn't know she had a tape recorder with her.
What did you talk about then?
Oh, I can't remember. I know I suppose just talk. I don't know.
You came here in 1914 as a bride.
As a bride. Didn't know a soul but my husband. And I loved it from the first I came here. Oh, I forgot to say the Brewers lived on. Judge Brewer and his Cruz, but not related to the governor, but not closely related. And it was a group for many years. And Mrs. Haskell, there was a Mrs. Haskell in it. She was a relative, but not the governor's wife.
Were you at the dedication of the state capitol building here in Oklahoma City in 1914?
I imagine I was. I was out there to some inaugural.
Because they started the building in 1910, it was completed in 1914. The year you came.
The year I came. Well, I don't imagine I was, really. I imagine I was too busy getting settled and buying that horrible furniture and learning to keep house. And
how old were you when you were married?
I don't remember. Isn't that too bad? You're never going to trick me.
I tried.
I know it.
Oh, what do you want to tell me about Oklahoma City? Your impression of it.
Now?
Yeah.
I think right now, I could live any place. I own no property. I could live any place, and I prefer to live here, even though I live alone. I mean, no family here. I prefer to live here. I don't think there's any place like Oklahoma or the people.
Mm-hmm.
They're the friendliest, and I've had some wonderful times here, and I've had a very pleasant life here. And as I say, I could live any place now, and I just wouldn't think of it. And I hope to live in Oklahoma City till to the end of my days. I don't see how anybody can leave Oklahoma.
Most people come back when they leave Oklahoma.
You need to do a little homework. What? Now you're coming up with something you know I'm not going to answer.
What?
I don't know. You just had that look.
I was thinking about the cotton fields.
Oh, the cotton fields. When I think what air conditioning has done for us. I remember air conditioning in the cars. I remember we were either always worrying about the boll weevil, or there wasn't enough water, or there was too much water for the cotton or something. Because, of course, especially when Forrest was a cotton broker, it had to be big production, you see. And I remember driving through the heat of that way. I can't stand wind on me anymore, and the hot wind on my face. We'd go through with the windows. I had to have the car windows open. There was no air conditioning. Drive through those hot cotton fields and look at the air cotton, you know. And it was really something. I don't see how we did it. And I remember the weather. I don't know when they start to publishing the weather in the paper, but I remember the Weather Bureau was up there on Classen and about 19th. Stood up high. And when Forrest would be starting out, he'd go there and get the weather report when he was going to look at the cotton fields. I know we'd drive all over the cotton country. It was a big producing, and Anderson Clayton were the biggest cotton people in the world. Then they finally moved to California, you know, and their places there on Classen and next to Harndale, you know, those Villa Teresa was their home. Mm-hmm. This is a big cotton state.
You ever consider going to California in the 30s?
And you mean to live?
Mm-hmm.
No.
When all the Okies are going to California?
Oh heavens, I'm not that kind of an Okie. We never were that. We always were provided for, we know, but no. I wouldn't like to. I've been out to California several times, but I wouldn't like to live there.
Did you know Mrs. Oberholzer?
No, I didn't. But I think that mansion is certainly something wonderful for the city.
You've been in the house, haven't you?
In the mansion, yes. In fact, some of our doll furniture was in it.
When's the first time you were in the house?
Oh, I tell you, Miss Ambrose was doing it over for Ione Overholzer. Miss Ambrose was a artist, a friend of mine, and she was doing it over. She was modernizing 2 rooms upstairs. Ione lived there with her husband, and she was doing that, and I went with her there.
When was that?
Oh, I really can't tell you. You know, time goes so fast for me, I can't keep up with it. Really. I can't remember. It's been, I'd say, well, it's before it was open to the public. The daughter still lived there with her husband, and they took 2 rooms and just made them modern, you know, and they lived in those, and I was there then, and of course I've been in since it's a museum. As I say, we had some doll furniture there, and I either had to give it to them or I had to take it out
Oh, this has been recently?
Yes, just recently I had to take it out. And because I had two grandchildren, and their mother had played with the doll furniture, and Stephanie had played with it, and the children had played with them themselves, that
Stephanie's your granddaughter?
yes, is my granddaughter. And I thought I had no right to give it away, really. So I went and got it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a wonderful thing for the city. I think it should be supported, too.
Stiles Park.
I hadn't thought of that in years. Stiles Park, East Side.
Who lived at Stiles Park when you first came?
I don't know. I wouldn't know. And there's a Flatiron building over there there used to be a butcher shop in it. Do you know where that is?
The building's still there.
Is it?
It's red brick.
Well, it used to be a butcher shop. I used to go there. I guess they must have had cheap meat or something, because I used to go way over there and buy stuff sometimes, not always. And then, of course, then we used to have a market down on California where they had all kinds of vegetables and things. And I never buy tomatoes. That I don't think of the old woman out at the market that told me not to squeeze the tomatoes. Every time I pick up a tomato in the store, I think of that woman. I don't know who she was. Of course, I wouldn't squeeze tomatoes anyway because I know better. But I think of that every time. It's funny how things like that will stick in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Think of that woman and don't squeeze the tomatoes. Oh, shoot.
Floods on the Canadian River.
Well, I never was in them, but some of my friends are not in the Canadian River, but some of these little rivers now have been flooded, you know. Out in the northwest part of town have been flooded. I don't know anything about the floods. I know that the Billingtons adopted a little girl that was, her parents were flooded out. The Billington Lumber Company were friends of ours later on. And later on, they adopted a little. They just really flooded the people out, and that was where that little park. What was that park called? I wonder. I can't remember. On the east side, it was flooded out. I know we used to take Jane, and I have pictures of her in swings, and we devoted a lot of time to her.
She's an only child, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Go on.
Go on.
Ask questions.
You go on. You're talking.
Well, I have to know what you want to know.
Everything.
Oh.
Did you know Pearl Mesta?
Well, now that's another thing. We used to go out to the fairgrounds. They used to have shows out there, and she was on the and not Pearl, but her sister. What was her sister's name? Yeah, she used to be in theater, and we used to go out to the theater. Oh, and we used to have at the Overholser Theater, we used to have stock companies come and stay a week, and real good shows. And we used to go there, and I know a friend and I thought we'd hire a box one time for the season and do all our entertaining in the box. We didn't. It didn't work out, but we had planned on that because these stock companies would go there, come and... Oh, there's been when I first came here, there was nothing, as I have said before, nothing but the land and nice people. Now we have everything. We have art, we have everything now. And I thought when my daughter went east to school, she was it was kind of hard for her to go up against those Eastern girls because they had art galleries and they'd had all those finer things of life all their lives. Now her best friend, they went to the art galleries like we go to church, and we didn't have all that then. But now we have everything. Ballet, we have just everything here. There's nothing you want that they don't have in Oklahoma City. We ought to practice.
Just the mailman.
Some more junk mail. Is he coming in? Let's read it off. Let's listen to it and see whether we're going to let it go or do it over. I meant to, but I got held up today. I meant to write those names down. Well, the Dale Schaefer's, they were oil people. She was very religious, and we went on a house party with them, and the Myrtle Brewer, she was kind of courting a judge here. I mean, they were courting, and Forrest and I were there, chaperones, and we went out to the oil field, and I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, we did, and to a house party and had such a good time. Of course, when I was here, I was young and pretty good looking and had a lot of nice clothes, and she liked to go with me because I was no threat to her because I already had a husband. I wasn't hunting a husband. And so she finally married Dr. Allen, who was a leading baby doctor here. And let's see the Schaefers and the Barneses and the Gunters and the Kerrs and the Deans. The Deans were the most important on account of Colonel Short, who was later General Short. Now was that in, oh, go answer it. Do you know how to turn it on?
Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if it really, that happens to me all the time.
I turned it on, this dial tone.
What? Could you hear it?
Yeah, this dial tone's all it was.
Well, now, isn't that funny?
I lost my train of thought.
What?
I lost my train of thought. What other prominent people do you remember? Who was mayor at that time?
I wasn't interested in politics. I was also a Democrat before I came here.
What are you now?
I'm a Republican. I just sent them 10, but I'm really provoked at them because is that on?
No.
Because they sent me a lot of Christmas cards about the Republican Party, and for $10. I've just sent my dues in there, $10 to the women, but I never go anymore because it's such an effort. Lots of places I don't go that I used to go, but I wouldn't send Republican cards to anybody but Republicans. You know, that it seems it's the kind of cards they had on the Christmas tree at the White House. Avi says her daughter was at the White House to dinner not long ago. I think
Speaking of Avi in the condo, was there any way you can get George to talk?
I don't think so. She said to me afterwards, she said, Opal, there's just, when he makes up his mind.
But he was an engineer.
Oh, yes.
On the Panama
He
Canal.
wanted to, he was trying to tell me how I could fix those steps so they didn't have to go up and down them. I couldn't see it, but Avi pretended she did, and I don't know if she did or not.
But he was an engineer.
Yeah, he says I was an engineer.
When we dug the Panama Canal in 1914? Is that when
Well, I don't think they were married then.
I think the canal was open in 1914, I think. I'm not sure.
I'm just dying to go to Panama Canal.
We'll go.
I can't.
Why?
I don't have anybody to go with. I wouldn't go alone. I'm not one to go alone any place. Mm-mm.
Well, I'm trying to think of anything else we could talk about.
Well, think of it. You know, Joe, really, when you're going to interview people, you must do your homework too.
I know. Let me see. 1914, Cruz was governor, wasn't he? In 1914.
I don't know for sure. I kind of think so. But I used to be invited up. The Cruz family lived just two doors off of 18th and Classen on the other side of the tracks. You see, the car tracks went out. I don't mean Classen, I mean Chartel. The car tracks went out. There was a car, streetcar. We all drove streetcars, you know, for years.
How much did it cost to ride it?
I don't remember, but I imagine 5 cents. I remember at home when ice cream sodas were 5 cents.
In Quincy?
Yes. And I remember we always in Quincy had fruit stores. And they had nothing but fruit. And you could get a dozen bananas, 2 dozen for 25 cents.
Not today.
Oh my Lord. They're 4 pounds for $1. It's on sale. And, well, everything. I think Forrest only, we didn't have a telephone. Oh, that's what I meant to tell. That when I came there, bride, and was in that little house, that the Crescent Grocery came out and took my order, and that delivered it. Now they won't even put an order up for you, and you send for it. I didn't try it too, but Mary and Matthias said they wouldn't. When she was crippled with her, had that operation on her hip, they wouldn't even put groceries up for her. You know, prepare them for somebody to pick up. But the Crescent, and we didn't have a telephone. Oh yes, the Blocks lived next door to us, and then the Marshalls lived next on the other side. And we used their telephone, and Forrest would get up. You know, Forrest has always been an early riser, and he'd get up, and he had a very cheap lawnmower, and he'd get out at, I guess, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and mow the lawn, and it made a terrible noise. And then the Blocks were Jewish. I wouldn't say that though, but the Blocks were Jewish, and they had some chickens, the white chickens that would fly, you know, and they'd fly across my yard. We were right between the Blocks and the Marshalls and the Blocks and the Marshalls, and it was our little house was between it. Sometime I'll show you that little house. It looks terrible now, and the chickens would fly across our yard and go into the Marshalls. So Mr. Marshall took nothing off of anybody. And he finally told Mr. Block that if the chickens flew over there again, they were going to be in his pot. He was going to have chicken something. Oh, I tell you, and those Blocks are something. Mrs. Block told me to come over and pick my flowers, and then she came out, and when I was picking them, I thought when people told you to do something, they meant it, you know. If I tell you to pick flowers, I mean it. But then she came out and said she was going to have a party and wanted the flowers. You know how that made a young girl that just married, you know, just a young girl. Oh, Jules Block is the son is, and I remember if they had his circumcision, now that isn't on, is it?
Yes.
Oh! I wouldn't tell that for anything. No, I'm not going to tell you what Nora and I did at the circumcision.
Did you see me turn it on?
No, I wouldn't have told all those things.
Well, I can erase those.
All right. Well,
yeah, I didn't turn it on.
don't do that to me. Why do you love to get me in some kind of a fix?
I don't.
You do too.
It's still on. Let me see.
Can you erase what you want?
Sure. Let me see. I lost my train of thought again when you were. Well, I think that's enough for this session. We can do another session.
I think we better do this one over when we both have more practice. I really should make an outline. I did when I did on Philomathia for the man.
Well, why don't you sit down and make an outline?
That's what I should do. I've thought about it a good deal. You know, I wake up in the night a lot.
Well, you think of something, write it down.
Well, I know it should be at a certain time. It should be all together. It shouldn't ramble as much as we've rambled today. Well, you're just practicing. I have a lot of people.
Sometimes that's how you get your best information.
When you're practicing?
No, when people ramble.
You know, I can ramble.
What shall we talk about next time?
Well, I don't know as I have anything I want to say next time.
The convent?
Oh, there's not much for me to tell on the convent. Only what we did and how we went to church and we never saw a man and man. Oh.
You never saw a man.
Well, no men. You know, they didn't come on the grounds.
St. Mary's is strictly girls' school.
It was them. No blacks. Is that still on?
Mm-hmm. No blacks, no men.
And I did get over to Notre Dame because Nora came up to visit me on Thanksgiving, and his sister Domitilla took us over. And that's when I got those two little, I don't know that I took them off the tables or she gave them to me, I suppose. But she had known my aunt, who was had been the Mother Superior there. She'd been dead 20 years and they still talked about her. And still, with all my Catholic background, they never pressed me to be a Catholic. They knew that my mother wasn't and that I'd never been confirmed, and they never pressed me to be a Catholic. It was a beautiful school, Joe. Oh, my. I always thought Jane would go there, but then when Jane came along, instead of being suppressed like you are in the convent, she needed to be pushed out a little bit. So she went to...
You need to be suppressed?
No, not exactly. Not exactly. But I remember an experience I had on the train. I'd never traveled alone before when I was going to college. Went from I can't remember how I got from Chicago to South Bend. But I remember on the train, on the Pullman, you know, going from Quincy. And I remember when I came home one Christmas, first Christmas, I had a black eye. I'd been playing basketball and ran into a bar, and they put me in the infirmary, and they put a stake to my eye to take the black off. And then when the day I was going home, I came out of the infirmary and went to breakfast with the girls, you know, and they had steak for breakfast. Do you think I could eat any? I'd had steak on my eye. When I got off the train, there was my family to meet me, and I had two black eyes.
What'd they say?
Oh, I told them what it was. They didn't say anything. I don't remember. But, I don't know. I've had lots of funny things happen.
What were you doing on Pearl Harbor Day?
I don't even know, Joe. I don't even know. I don't remember.
Okay, let's end this session and we'll do it again.
can't soften it a little. Make me sound like a lady. Can you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay, this is June 7th, 1985,
What?
and my name is Joe Todd.
Yeah.
This is an interview with Mrs. Opal Knipe, Knipe.
Yeah.
Miss Knipe, where were you born?
I was born in Kansas City. Is that what I said before?
Yeah. When's your birthday?
May the 2nd.
What year?
Do I have to tell it?
You don't have to.
Well, I won't then.
Okay. Who is your father?
John J. Moriarty. Moriarty. One R. One T in it.
And your mother?
Ida Mae Harriet.
What kind of work your father do?
He was a buyer for hide wool for and let's see, hide. He bought hides, fur, and wool.
Do you have any memories about Quincy?
Yes, it was a stodgy old town.
What kind of town?
Stodgy old town. Stodgy.
Oh.
Is that what I want to say? It had a wonderful brewery there, Dick's Beer. And when it went out, everything went out. Quincy. It never grew. It's always stayed 35,000 as far as I knew. What else you want?
Did you go to school in Quincy?
Yes, I did. Webster School on Main Street.
What year did you start school?
You know, I don't know. I wouldn't tell if I did. You're prying too much.
Tell me some more about Quincy. What kind of house you lived in?
I lived in a brick house on Main Street and in a very nice neighborhood. Although we didn't have a lot of money, we never went with trashy people. We always went with the best people of the town. Our mother had very high ideals for us. There were two of us, two girls.
What was your sister's name?
Nora, N-O-R-A, Irish. She was an Irish Catholic. My father was an Irish Catholic. My mother and I were not. I always went with my mother. I was like my mother. And Nora was just an image of her father.
How come you weren't Catholic?
Well, I don't know. I went to a convent.
You did?
Yes, and I had my father's sister was a nun, and she'd been dead 20 years, and they still talked about her. She was such a wonderful woman, but I just never was Catholic. They never forced it on me, and I just know at that time as many Protestant children went to the parochial schools, to the schools. I could tell you something funny.
Go ahead.
No.
Why?
Well, you would take it off the record.
Yes, ma'am.
I went to parochial school till I got bugs in my head. Then that was my mother's excuse for taking me out. Parochial school. My sister didn't get them. It must have been some way she leaned down, that I leaned down, that she didn't. We went to this parochial school, St. Rosalina School.
What convent did you go to?
I went to St. Mary's Convent. I went to Notre Dame, the Sisters of Notre Dame in Notre Dame, Indiana.
What year?
I don't remember the year. I really don't. I'm sorry. So much is going on in my life, I can't remember those little details.
Tell me about the convent.
Well, it was a very lovely place. We learned to do lovely, fancy work. We learned the 3 arts, and there was nothing in a convent that wouldn't improve a girl's outlook on life. And I always thought when my daughter, if I ever had a daughter, she'd go to a convent. But when my daughter came, she needed pushing out rather than holding in. And of course, you were very restricted in a convent in those days.
So they sent you to the convent to hold you back?
Yeah, held me back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had lots of opportunities to do lots of very romantic things, but my mother held me back. In those days, we listened to our parents. I think it was one of the last days where children listened to their parents. We listened to our parents. I had the chance to go on the stage. I had a chance to do lots of things. I was considered at that time a very beautiful girl. Whether I was or not, I don't know. I never thought I was. I've never thought too highly of myself. But
Why?
I don't know why. I don't know why. I just don't. Why would you say? Maybe the influence of the convent. Of course, an actress was not the highest profession you could have in a convent.
It wasn't.
No. My very best friend at St. Mary's was studying voice, and she was going on the stage. But otherwise, it was not considered, the stage was not considered a lovely place for a girl.
You think you had a chance to go on the stage?
Yes, I did.
With who?
With Naomi Rice and her family. They were getting a company up, and they wanted me to go with them. A repertoire company where they went around to different places. I had lots of chances.
Did you want to go with them?
Sure, I wanted to go with them. Who wouldn't at my age?
Now, you mentioned an artist in Quincy.
Nisa McMahon.
Tell me about her.
Well, Nisa McMahon, I lived next door to her, and she could sing. I could sing, but I couldn't play the piano. I never practiced enough. I've been sorry many times that I didn't, but especially when I hear some of these men players, but I didn't. And she could play and sing. She could sing, kind of talk music. And she went to New York. She was an artist in New York. She wanted me to go to New York with her and be a model. Of course, that was all out of the pale. You didn't do those things in those days. And you listened to your parents. I think I was the last generation that listened to my parents. Does that explain a lot?
Yes, ma'am. What is Nisa McMahon most famous for?
For her paintings. She had the first girls on covers, first pictures of girls on covers.
Of magazines?
Of magazines.
Did she put you on a magazine cover?
You know, I don't remember. I don't know. I imagine I did, because we lived next door to her, and she sang and played, and we'd get together and sing and play.
What magazines did she do the covers for?
You know, I don't remember that either. They were ladies' magazines, of course.
Oh, Ladies' Home Journal, that type?
I imagine,
What kind of person was Nisa McMahon?
She was a very talented person. She went to New York with her father's consent, I think, and she went with the artists. She used to come home and tell the things they did, just bug our eyes out. Their next door neighbors. We were a next door neighbor. Come in for.
Did you know your grandparents?
What?
Did you know your grandparents?
Yes, I did. My grandfather ran away and left my mother when she was a young girl, left her mother. And my grandmother was a very hard woman. I mean hard. We were raised, we never were whipped. I never had a whipping. We never were whipped. My mother didn't believe in it. We were raised with love. And my grandmother was a very hard woman, but her husband ran away and left her. And when she married, she was left a beautiful farm in Kansas, and he he was let me see, what did he do? Well,
I think he did carpentry.
he was a carpenter, and he always wanted to be an artist, I think. And he was an artistic man.
What was his name?
Harriet. And my mother, years after, she didn't hear from him for years and years and years. And years after, she got the word from Kansas City that he was dying. And my mother went down there, although we never had a lot of money. Although we had very little money, my mother took the money and went down to Kansas City to see that he was taken care of. I had a very fine mother, a very tender-hearted mother, and I felt the only way I could pay her back was to do something for my own daughter.
Were either one of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
Not that I know of. I imagine, I don't know, my grandmother, when she married my grandfather, each girl was, I don't know how many girls they had, but they had probably 6. But each girl was left a farm. My grandmother was left a beautiful farm. And he didn't want to be a farmer. He wanted to be I don't know what he wanted to be. I guess he wanted to be free and roam. And
I thought maybe a doctor.
no, I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't know, Jane. I don't remember that.
Where'd you meet your husband?
I met him in Quincy, and that's a queer incident too, a little different. I always had a sick mother. She never, I remember as a child praying that she'd get well, and she never did. And we took our meals at a boarding house nearby. Some sisters ran it, some school teachers, and they never taken Gem City Business College boys because they expect to get an education in 3 months, which you can't do. But we went there, and we had a table. My sister, I had an older sister, and my mother and myself and Nora had a table, and these boys always went by it, and so I guess we were pretty good-looking girls, and they stopped and talked, and that's where I met my husband. And he came home to make a fortune, and he had a business college education. And we never went with business college boys in Oklahoma City. We had a famous business college there, Musselman's Business. Did you ever hear of it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that was in Quincy. And but Forrest and another young man came there and took it. And they boarded. And this boarding house had never taken business college, Gem City Business College men, because they were kind of wild and they're there to get an education in 6 months, you know. But they did take these 3 of them, and 2 of them wanted to marry me and one wanted to marry Nora. But Nora didn't. He was an Irish Catholic and Nora was Irish Catholic. That's another thing. My father and my sister were Catholic. My father was educated to be a priest, but my mother and I were never. My mother never should have accepted the Pope, and I guess I couldn't either because she couldn't. So we never were Catholic, but I did go to a convent, and
Yeah,
I'm
St.
all
Mary's.
for it. And I always felt that when my daughter came along, she'd go to the same convent I did. But when Jane came along, she needed pushing out. She needed to be pushed out a little bit, so she didn't go to a convent. She went to a girls' school, a very fine girls' school, Chevy Chase, in Washington, D.C. It was the making of Jane Adele, that school.
Tell me some more about the convent.
Well, what about it?
Where did you stay?
They were the Sisters of the Holy Cross, and they wore costumes, of course, and they taught at some of the parochial schools. And we had to, my father insisted that we go to a parochial school. And if you won't put this in, I'll tell it to you.
Okay.
All right. We went there until we got bugs in our heads. And then our mother said it was time we went to a public school. I didn't get them. I got them, but Nora didn't get them. It must have been Nora's Heights or something. But anyway, that's what got us out. That's what got us out of Crowfield School.
Where did you stay at the convent?
Where did I stay?
Mm-hmm.
I stayed at the convent.
I mean, in a dormitory?
Dormitory. There were, I think, about 6 of us. We had little curtains down.
Oh, so we were in one room?
Yeah, in one room, and we had a sister, Sister Donatella. She was a very broad-minded sister and had a great deal to do with our lives. And I think you learn nothing but good at a convent, although I'm not Catholic. And even though now my father's sister was a nun, and even though she was a mother superior in a convent, they never tried to make a convert out of me.
What was her name, your aunt's name?
Oh, what was her name? You know, I don't even remember. She was head of a convent, and she started the first convent in San Francisco. And when I was out there, we saw where the convent had been. It was a stark-looking building on the corner, just a brick building.
How was the room decorated where you stayed in the convent? How was the room furnished?
I don't even remember, Joe. I don't remember. I don't remember any. I tell you, we had little curtains down. We had so much room, and it was curtained. So I guess maybe we didn't have any decorations.
Did you have to wear a uniform?
Well, yes, on Sunday we wore uniforms on Sunday.
What did it look like?
And they were dark dresses, of course, and we had dark dresses, and I don't remember anything but dark dresses. And then on Sunday we wore a white veil. We wore a veil that came to about here on me. We wore a veil to church. That was our time. You never went into Catholic church without something on your head. It was, and the nuns, nobody bothered, nobody fixed the altar, did anything about the altar except the nuns. And my father was very Catholic, you know.
Meals at the convent.
In the convent, it was like a boarding house. You ate at the table and you had your...
At the same building where you stayed? In the same...
Well, I don't remember about that, Joe. But I remember I have my napkin ring, and that I had in the convent. We had our napkin rings. We didn't have paper napkins, I can tell you that. I hate paper napkins. We had napkins, and we had our napkin rings, and we put our napkins in it, and we ate on nice linen. I was at a nice convent in Quincy, and then I was in Notre Dame. The reason I got in that was my father's sister had been the president of the convent, and we never had much money. My mother never had enough money for her girls. I guess she was too ambitious for us.
What were your duties or your chores at the convent?
You know, I don't remember any. I'm sure we did something, had to do something. We had to set the table or do something, I don't know, but I don't remember any of them.
What about your classes?
I don't remember about those either, Joe. I suppose I tried to forget them as soon as I was finished with them.
What was your husband's name?
His name was George Forrest Knipe. He was a country boy, raised of a pioneer family. He was the oldest son of a pioneer family.
Where was he from?
Perkins, Oklahoma. He was reared there, and he went to, and then the reason I met him because he came. It was real funny. We never went with college students because they were getting an education in 6 months, and you don't get an education in 6 months. And we never went with college students. And when we met him, my mother was never well, and I remember all my life praying that she'd get well, and we took our meals at this fancy boarding house. They had never taken students because they were kind of wild and kind of country. and these teachers had never taken students, but they took these 3 students, and one was an Indian, and he bugged our eyes out because we'd never seen Indians. One was an Indian, one was an Irishman, and one was Forrest. And that was where...
What did you think of that Indian?
What did I think of him?
Yeah, first time you saw him.
Well, I thought he was pretty good looking, and I thought he was pretty nice. He was pretty nice. He was from Oklahoma City. I met him down here, and he wasn't quite so elegant down here as he had been in Quincy.
What's his name?
You know, I don't even remember.
What year did you get married?
You know, I don't remember, Joe. What?
I think about 1914, Mother.
I think it was 1914.
1914.
Uh-huh.
And where'd you go on your honeymoon?
I guess we came to Oklahoma City. We came here. His father was a wealthy, quite a well-to-do, what I want to say it, man, not a farmer, a rancher. And he told him to come up there to Quincy and not get in trouble, any foolishness. And so Forrest had to come home. I didn't see Forrest for a whole year. He was down here trying to make a living, trying to get a job and make a living. And he was a gin manager of cotton gins.
What was your father-in-law's name?
William Knipe. He was a very strong man. And I think it weakened the boys in a way. And Forrest was the oldest son of a pioneer family. And of course he had, for all our lives, his father called on Forrest when he wanted something done. His father was fond of me because I answered him back. I sassed him. And the other girls were afraid of him, and I wasn't afraid of him. I was Irish, you know.
You say he was a pioneer family.
What?
He was from a pioneer family?
Yes, he was the oldest son of a pioneer family.
When did the Knipe family come into Oklahoma?
I just don't really know.
1889, Mother.
1889?
Did they come in for the land run?
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Was he called a Sooner?
I don't know.
I kind of think he was, but I wouldn't put that in because it isn't very, very commendable.
What kind of work did he do besides ranching?
Who, Forrest?
No,
He was cotton
no,
man.
your father-in-law.
My father-in-law just was a rancher and he raised cotton. And Forrest, from the time he was a little boy, was on a cotton wagon or a cotton gin or something. You know, he was raised. Forrest knew nothing but cotton.
Did your father-in-law work for the railroad?
Yes, he did. He was right-of-way man for the railroad. And he named a lot of the towns. Why he never named one Knipe, I never know.
When did he first come in with the railroad into Oklahoma?
I just don't know. I don't have any idea. I should make up some real good story. If I didn't know it, I would have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not beyond my ethics.
How big was the town of Perkins when you went there?
Well, the Knipes had the first bathtub, and it was a tin tub. And the people at Perkins thought it was unsanitary because it was indoors. And that's, I don't know what it was. I guess I didn't see Forrest for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
He was down here trying to make a living and trying to get a job. And I didn't see him for a whole year.
How long did you live in Perkins?
I never lived in Perkins.
Oh, when you came to Oklahoma.
We went to Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City.
And we rented this little house. It was a little farmhouse. And the steps went way out. And I used to sit on the steps and wait for Forrest to come home. And he was managing a gin. Forrest knew nothing but cotton.
Where was that house?
What?
That first house you rented?
Oh,
where was it?
it was on 18th and just off of Chartel. And I made some very fine friends there, prominent people.
Who?
I
Who
had
was some of them?
Mrs. Gunter, the Gunters, and there was some more people, I can't think of their name now.
Who were the Gunners?
What?
Who were the Gunners?
The Gunters? They were, at one time in my life, they were everybody quoted Miss Gunter wore this, or Mr. Leafy went to town to buy something. Mrs. Gunter wore this, or Mrs. Gunter wore that. And that's,
Where did they live?
oh, they finished. He was president. He was very religious, and he worked that pretty good. And it was a Methodist church. And then I think they kind of got in some kind of disgrace, and they moved to California. And they were my dear friends, my lifelong friends. And he finally died out there.
What part of town do they live in?
Pardon?
What part of town do they live in?
We all lived around 18th and Chartel. There's a big house there, and several big houses, and the Gunders lived in one. And Miss Gunder kind of took me up. I had pretty clothes. I was a good-looking girl, and it was not hard to sponsor me, because I hadn't had any of that pioneer life, you see. And I'd gone to a convent, and anyway, there was always somebody who was kind of looking after me.
Didn't the Gunners build a new house here in Oklahoma City?
Oh yes, that beautiful house. They lost it. They lost it. It was.
Where is that house?
It's out on. I could take you to it. Jane was out there to a gorgeous wedding, but I was up in Quincy and I didn't get to go. Jane and Forrest went to it.
Now, is that the one they call the Eddie House?
Yes.
Why is it called the Eddie House, not the Gunner
Because
House?
the Eddies bought it, and the Eddies had a lot of money and put it in it. They were Greeks, I think. Weren't they Greek? They were some very foreign, and they finally sold it. And Jane and Forrest went to a very beautiful wedding out there at that house.
Louise Curry Gunners.
Louise Curry Gunner. Miss Gunner, when I came here a bride, you go down to buy something and they say, oh, Mrs. Gunner wears this, Mrs. Gunner wears that. You know, they were leaders. What's that?
Had they completed the Capitol building when you moved here, 1914?
Had they not?
Completed the new Capitol building.
I think I was at the opening of the Capitol.
You were?
Yeah.
Tell me about that day.
I don't remember it really, Joe. I don't remember it. I was a young woman and busy and dancing and doing around. And everybody, all the legislators and their wives lived at the Huckins Hotel. I was very sick when the Huckins was torn down, because all the big events in my early life took place at the Huckins. Everything was at the Huckins.
I heard it was the Capitol building for a while.
I guess it was.
While they were building the Capitol building,
Yeah,
they used the Huckins as the
And they
Capitol.
all lived there. The legislators all lived there. Their wives. And I don't know. I guess I came down here and I was young and I was full of pep and pretty good looking and had nice clothes, and I got to go to lots of nice things.
What styles of dresses did the women wear in 1914?
Well, they wore kind of long dresses, but I don't remember the style.
They wore a bustle?
No, I never wore a bustle. Lord, I'm not that old. Bustle. Don't ask your next person that, lady. You might as well ask her age, which you hadn't better do.
Do you remember when the boys went down to the Mexican border in 1916?
No, I don't. I don't remember much. I don't know where I was. I don't remember much about that.
That's when General Pershing came through and they went to chase Pancho Villa.
What year would it have been?
1916.
1916. Well, I believe I was in Quincy then. And we lived at the Tremont Hotel, and it had a big porch over there.
Now, you moved back to Quincy?
I think I lived in Quincy at that time.
Now, that's after you were married.
Well, I didn't go back after I was married. No, I never was back after. I was back, but never as a single girl.
How about World War One?
What?
World War One.
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do for the war effort?
Well, I was on the canteen, and we had a little house down at the station, you know, down on Reno, wherever it is now, you know where the little station is. We had a little house there,
And I remember one time we wore uniforms, you know, kind of cotton uniforms. And I remember I was taking a streetcar home. Nobody had cars then. We didn't have a car. And I was taking a streetcar home, and some old fella came up and spoke to me. He wouldn't have thought of speaking to me if I hadn't had that uniform on, because I looked like I was a maid someplace. But
What kind of work did you do at the canteen?
Oh, I served sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly and sandwiches and did that kind of work.
I think Mother had something to do with living pictures.
Oh, yes, Nisa, not Nisa McMahon, but some girl, I believe it was a Dean girl. You know, the Dean jewelry were here there. They finally failed. You know that officer that was in the war when they disgraced him?
Oh, in the
Pearl
Pearl
Harbor.
Harbor?
Yeah.
Was that Short?
Short. I was at Short's wedding. We all went down on the streetcar down to the St. Paul's Church, and I was at the wedding. The reason I was at the wedding was I lived across the street, and Mrs. Dean was the most useless woman I ever saw. She sat on the front porch and just rocked all the time. And we were invited because, as I say, I had nice clothes and I was a bride, and you know we got by on.
Tell me about the living pictures.
Well, we had floats of pictures of things of the war, and who do you remember, Jane? Hearing me tell who helped me? Some woman helped me. I think it was Ann Waters, who was the editor, the wife of the editor of the Oklahoman and Times. You remember? Do you remember him?
I've heard the name.
Yeah. Well, I think she helped me, and we had living pictures.
What is a living picture?
Well, a living picture is on a float. It'd be on a big, well, what do I want to say? A big
Trailer or?
trailer, yeah. And
Well, what?
you depict different things of the war.
Because you have actual people on the float then
Yes,
depicting what's going on.
you'd pick the people and they'd pose, you know, whatever we wanted them to do, pose on that, and they'd ride through town.
How many troop trains would come through Oklahoma City in one day?
I don't know, but we were down there, and we served things, and
You probably served Grandpa.
I guess so.
He came through here in
He
World War
did?
I. In fact, he enlisted here.
Well, yeah, we served things down there, went down there and served things. And,
What about Armistice Day?
you know, I don't remember much about it.
No big celebration that you remember?
I know, I don't. There and served things. And,
What about Armistice Day?
you know, I don't remember much about it.
No big celebration that you remember?
I know, I don't. I'm sure there were, because we were very patriotic, and I mean the city. And
Tell me about,
what was that about? Oh my God, Papa.
were there many flappers here in Oklahoma City
Flappers?
in the 20s?
I don't know, Joe. I wasn't in that group, you see. I was married and settled. Although we had a dean's wife that tried to date me up with a minister that was down at the church.
Tell me about hardware.
Petty hardware. My Haviland dishes came from there. That's the only place you could get good china, was at the Petty Hardware. And my father-in-law took me down there after I was married. He was a rough old rancher, but he loved beautiful china, and he always had beautiful china. And he took me down there and let me pick out anything I wanted in the way of china. And I picked out this little pink rose. You might know I think of pink rose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and all the fine china was bought at Petty's Hardware.
How big was that store?
You know, I have no idea, Joe. It was a pretty big store. It was a big store.
And what church were you going to at that time?
We always went to Episcopal Church.
Which one?
St. Paul. I've been down there all these years.
Was Bishop Brooke there at that time?
Wait a minute, Bishop Brooke? Yes. And Mrs. Brooke was very nice to me, the bishop's wife. And she'd come by and get me, and we'd go places together.
Tell me about the bishop. What was he like, the bishop?
Well, he was a very humble man and a very fine man. And he had all the trials of the early, we were, what do I want to say, a mission instead of a church. We were a mission. And when Forrest and I came here, we went to St. Paul. We decided we were going to be Episcopalians. We couldn't be Catholic. And Episcopalian would be the only thing that would satisfy my father.
When did St. Paul become the cathedral?
You know, I don't remember. Those important dates, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Tell me just about some of your memories of Oklahoma City.
Well, we drove, and we just drove. We had no restrictions on. I can't remember stopping at stop signs. I'm sure we must have, but I can't remember that. And I remember we had one of the first cars. We had a little car. Our first car was I think it cost $300 and something.
What kind was it?
Ford. You might know it was a Ford. And it was an open Ford, and just 3 people could ride in it. And we had that kind of a car. But you had to crank it. You had to get out in front of it and crank it. And I'm sure there were some funny pictures made of it.
Do you remember when the highwayman stopped us or tried to stop us out in the
No,
country?
I don't. Where was it, Jane?
Oh. Well, we were just out on a country road at night, the 3 of us. And these fellas tried to stop us, and Daddy just speeded around the side and drove into a farmhouse driveway. And there were some lights on in the house, and the men just went on by. They had chased us there.
I'd forgotten that.
Mm-hmm. Were the streets paved in Oklahoma City when you came here?
I don't remember, really. I don't remember, Joe. I remember that Bill Montana, Mrs. Montana was a friend of mine, and you want to check it. And he had paved all the streets of Guthrie. He was a manager in Guthrie, and he came down here, and I don't remember the streets being paved.
Were there big floods in the Canadian in those years, in the Canadian River?
I don't remember that. That was the one place where we'd take Jane to a park. It was in a bad part of town, but we'd go down there and take her so she'd have a good place to play. In that, where that Canadian River was.
Did you know Henry Overholser?
Just slightly, not really know him.
What kind of man was he, or what you knew about him?
I don't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't pass any judgment on
Did you know
him.
Mrs. Overholser?
I just met her. I met her in a social way, just to meet her.
What about the daughter?
Oh, Henry, she was kind of a little snob. I don't blame her. She was here in this new country, and I had to put up with a lot of things.
How come he built that house out where he did, the Overholser mansion?
Well, I don't know. I think I've been asked that before. I don't remember. But I had a friend that was a decorator, and I went through it afterwards. When Henry Ione was trying to make it into a modern house, she tried to make part of it into a modern house, and I know I went through it at that time with this decorator friend.
Do you have any questions that you want?
Oh, I was just thinking about the early days, Mother. You remember when Daddy used to clerk in his father's store, and the men used to come in with a stick, the old farmers would, and say, "Give me a pair of shoes for my wife"?
No, I don't remember. I wasn't in the family at that time. You see, that was before I was married for her.
And they'd say the stick is the length of her
The
shoe, her
And
foot.
It was easy to fit a shoe then.
Oh, about the Crescent Grocery, Mother.
Oh, the Crescent Grocery. Now, I lived on, do you know where, let me see, what street is it? You know where Chartel is,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it goes out, and there's a big building there it's apartments on
Chartel and Mont.
Chartel and about, let me see,
17th, 18th.
about 18th. Chartel and 18th. Well, I lived in a little street, a little house down there. We never made the mistake of living in a poor neighborhood. We never lived in a poor neighborhood, whether we had money or not. We didn't live in a poor neighborhood. We were selective of our friends, always, from the beginning. And the social life was all there on 18th and Chartel. You know, there's a big building of apartments on 18th, and those are the most expensive apartments in town. They rented for $35 a month. Think. And that was the most important. And
But then the grocery store.
oh, the grocery store, the Crescent Grocery. I had no telephone. Oh Lord, the thought of the telephone was extravagant. I had no telephone, so the Crescent Grocery would come out and take my order. Then they would go back and fill it, and come back, bring my groceries back to me. The Crescent, mind you.
Where was the Crescent?
Well, now, I only remember it on that street,
Could it be 10th?
on 10th. I remember it on,
Where WKY was above them.
yeah.
About, what, 10th and Chartel?
It's there on that street that goes out to, I think it's called Harndale, and
Harndale.
ends
Oh,
in
okay,
Classen.
okay, yeah.
But you go all the way down. I don't know if
Did they still have Delmar Gardens when you came here?
No, I never was at Delmar Gardens.
About Belle Isle.
Yes, Belle Isle. We used to take Jane out to Belle Isle.
Tell me about Belle Isle.
Well, it was a little amusement park, and we took there, and Forrest never could go around, and I always had to ride all the things with Jane because most things went around, you know, and he got dizzy. And Belle Isle was a nice little park. We went out there a lot. If we had a disappointment for her or something, we took her out to Belle Isle.
Do you remember when we won the ring on the merry-go-round?
And Forrest had to ride again.
And we had a second free ride.
Forrest had to ride it, and it made him sick, you know. He couldn't ride anything that went around and around. I always had to ride with Jane. And she never would eat ice cream with me.
That was later.
Yes, later.
What about the lake out there? Belle Isle Lake?
Oh, it was nice. It was nice lake.
How come they closed that?
I don't know. And at that time, the social life was all around 20th and Chartel. Not 20th, no, 18th and 19th and Chartel. These nicest apartments and everything was there. And Forrest and I came here, and as I say, we never lived in a tacky neighborhood. We never associated with tacky people. Whether we had money or not, we never did. And we came here, and the Gunners took a liking to me, and I guess to Forrest too, and they kind of sponsored us, and we went with the social life was all around there in 18th and Chartel.
Do you remember the money panic of 1920 and 21?
No, I don't remember it too well. It didn't strike me too much. I guess Forrest was on a salary, and I guess he kept on getting it.
What about the 1930s, the Depression in the 30s?
Oh, I suppose I economized, but I've saved all my life, Joe, anyway. I don't need depression to make me save. I have saved all my life. I don't know any time in my life where I spent money just to spend money. Never. And now I'm going to say when I'm buried because I've got a lot all picked out.
Well, you remember Daddy's time during the Depression and when brokers were cut out of the business?
No, I don't.
That Roosevelt kind of took away his livelihood?
Yeah, they plowed the cotton under, didn't they?
They what?
Plowed the cotton under?
Yes, that was Roosevelt. Oh, how we hated Roosevelt. We went to see his grave, and Forrest stood there and looked at it, and Jane and I wondered what he was thinking. But just glad he was down under.
How did you all get by then after the cotton was plowed under?
Oh, I don't know. You know, Joe, I've saved all my life, and I'm just naturally a saver, and I guess I just saved. We never lived in tacky neighborhoods. We never went with tacky people, whether we had money or not. We went with...
Well, Daddy sold cars, didn't he, Mother?
Oh, he tried to sell cars, but of course wasn't really a salesman. You know that Nan Sheets picture we have at home?
Yes.
Well, that original, he got that in part payment for a car. Forrest was not really a salesman. I think he wasn't a backslapper enough. He wasn't. He was friendly, but he didn't slap backs, you know.
Did you know Nan Sheets?
Yes, I knew her quite well.
Tell me about her.
Well, she was a great big woman, and the kindergarten teacher that I was so crazy about, and Jane was, she was a phenomenal teacher of Oklahoma City, lived as Nan Sheets, and I knew her better that way. She was a great big woman, and she was, I don't know exactly how to describe her. Not very good looking. She was a little too heavy.
What about her personality?
Oh, I don't know. I guess she had one. I guess it was all right.
Did she ever talk about the WPA art program that she was in charge of?
Not that I know of. I never heard her. I'm sure she must have, but I never heard her. Have we filled up your lines?
Oh, it's close. What did you want to talk about?
I don't care. What do you want to talk about?
What about you?
Oh no, I'm a very ordinary person. People surprise me sometimes. Their feelings about me and what they say to me, because I think I'm just like everybody else.
How old are you?
I don't tell it. A woman that'll tell her age will tell anything. I tell you when you can see it, when you read my obituary. It should be in big letters. I don't care then. I'm gone. I'm older than you think, maybe.
Can you talk more about the Depression, Mother?
Well, it seems to me I've had depression all my life, Jane. I have saved all my life, Joe. I don't know anything else. My mother never had enough money for us. I guess she was too ambitious. And Forrest, she never urged us to marry money, although she did want me to marry a man who was twice my age. And I guess his money had something to do with it, but I was too simple then to realize it.
Oh, those were your days down in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
In Arkansas.
Tell me about Hot Springs.
Well, it was a place where men went to get rid of a bad disease, and we were never allowed to go. We were never allowed to go as visitors, to date visitors, because they probably were using you know, that's what they were down there for.
What were they down there for?
What?
What were they down there for?
Well, for this disease they had.
What disease?
Oh, well, I guess you don't. You use mercury. You rub mercury on you. A social disease.
Oh, okay.
I guess that answers it.
Mm-hmm.
And we never went with visitors down there. We always went with the...
Why'd you go to Hot Springs?
What?
Why'd you go to Hot Springs?
My mother had arthritis, and we went there for her health. And I think some of it was to get away from my father. I'm not sure now, but now I got it.
Did you take the baths down there?
Did I? Yes. Some.
What was your favorite bathhouse?
Marie's.
Marie's?
They gave us a discount. That's why they were our favorite.
Was that one of the better bathhouses down
Yes.
there?
I tell you, Joe, we even though we didn't have money lots of times, we never went with common people. We never.
Now, how did those bathhouses work? What?
Well, you bought tickets. You got a ticket for, I guess, 25 baths, and you punched it each time, and when your baths were done, why it was...
I mean, do you just have a tub you got in, or what? How did it work?
Oh, I guess we got in a tub, a big one, but I don't... And we took vapors. Men that went down there for social disease had to rub mercury, and then they had to take vapors to get it out of their system. So we took vapors. My mother took vapors, and my mother went down there 20 years later, and went in one of these bathhouses, and the black came up and greeted her and said, "Oh, you're Mrs. Moriarty with those two girls," and they remembered us all that time.
Now, what are vapors?
Well, you go in a vapor in a little room, smaller than this, and then you just sweat.
Oh, kind of like a sauna.
What?
Kind of like a sauna?
I guess it's like that, kind of. But I don't think the sauna was discovered then.
Did you go to the World's Fair in St. Louis?
You know, I don't remember. I kind of think I did, though. Our mother never let us miss anything. Our mother, we had a very ambitious mother. She didn't want us to marry money or anything like that, but she always, we never went with tacky people or people of no education, because no matter how little money we had, we went with the best or we didn't go.
Do you have any memories of St. Louis or the World's Fair?
No, I don't. Sure, you thought of something else.
Didn't you used to take the trip down the Mississippi, Mother?
Oh, yes,
Is
that
that part
Mississippi
of
River
your...
on the steamboat. That was a wonderful trip.
Which steamboat?
Oh, what name a couple of them?
Well, there's the Natchez, the Delta Queen.
Delta Queen we went
Delta
on.
Queen.
And it would come to Quincy, and we'd know the night it was coming, and they'd call us when they got there, and we'd have to be ready and go down and catch the boat there to go to St. Louis. Oh, we had a good time there. And I remember one little incident. My mother was engaged to a man, and she met his, I believe his grandson on this trip. One of the trips was on it. And, and he sent Nora. My sister was kind of funny about men. She liked men, but she didn't seem to get along with them too well. And he sent her a basket of champagne, about like this, a bottle of champagne on one of those trips. What else do you want to know?
I don't know.
What?
What else? What do you want to talk about?
I don't know.
Tell me what it was like on that steamship, that steamboat, the Delta Queen.
Oh, it was just a steamboat, and we danced, and flirted and had fun.
And flirted.
Yeah, flirted a little. There were always men around. And my mother always taught us to be sure and look behind to see if they were coming, if they were following.
How would you flirt with a young man?
Oh, I don't know, Joe. You learn how. I call it signals now. I say women that get married have to put up the right signals. That are remarried.
So you said your mother said to look back and see if the boys were coming?
Be sure they were coming.
If you were running from them?
What?
You were running from them?
Yeah. But be sure they were following. My mother was not a college woman, but she was very, very smart. Very smart with the ways of life. Hey, don't tell me you run out of questions. What?
Almost out of tape.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
What else you want to talk about?
Nothing.
Oh, why don't you tell how Gran and Paul met, Mother? How your mother met your father?
Well, I don't know exactly, except my mother was engaged to a man and had his ring. And Nora lost it. And he was killed. My father.
In a horse race.
In a horse
and
race.
His horse stepped in a hole.
And my father notified my mother, and that's how she met my father. It was not a very good marriage.
It wasn't.
No, I was raised in a fighting Irish family, if you know what that was. And sometimes when I'm trying to excuse some of my faults, I think, well, look what you came up from.
You still have an Irish temper?
Yes, I do. And I'm about to bring it out on you.
Why?
Well, I'm just tired of talking.
Oh, okay. We'll stop then.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.